First off, let me just welcome you all tonight. Thank you for coming out. Before we begin, I would like to introduce a couple of people because you're here. One of our board members, our board president, Miss Annette Tucker Sutherland. If we can give her a round of applause. And also our mayor is here. Mayor Lyken is here. If you can just wave in the back of the room. And then all of our central office administrators are here. If you all can just wave around the room, we need to give them a round of applause. I know that you all are not here to see everybody. You're here to get some information, and I'm hoping that we're able to share some very important information regarding our new Ohio report card system. Today we are going to have one of our central office administrators, Dr. Dale Whittington, who will talk to us and walk us through the actual process. I wanted to start out today just by sharing a couple of words with you regarding this new Ohio report card. For one, I just want to say that it is a very complex tool, but we have to keep in mind that it is one source of information for us. We cannot say that the new report card actually determines how great of a school district we are. I mean, just being in the schools the past few months and talking with our teachers as well as our administrators, I find this a really great place. It's a special place, and I think that we offer a lot of courses for our students. We have a lot of activities, and we're doing a great job overall, but we do have some areas that we need to grow. What you'll hear today is our report card has changed from having the rating of effective or excellent with distinction. Many of you are familiar with that. We've now changed to an A through F grading system with our report card. And we're going to have, some positive grades, and I think we're going to have some concerns about some of our grades that will be issued. The state has released a statement to say that tomorrow at 11 o'clock, our grades will be released to the public, supposedly. I believe it's going to be released on the Ohio Department of Education's website, so you can visit the website tomorrow after 11 a.m. to see what our scores are. But looking at the preliminary data, there are some concerns for us. In particular, there are a few concerns with some of our student groups, such as our African American student group, our economically disadvantaged student group, as well as our students with disabilities. And this is not anything we didn't already know as a district. I think one of the reasons I came here was because we wanted to tackle the achievement gap as a district, and that's why it really piqued my interest to apply to Shaker Schools, because I believe that I can come and lead you all and serve this community very well to help us do that. But prior to me coming here a month ago, we already had a strategic plan in place. And it was a 2-year strategic plan. It started back in 2011, or 2010 was when the initial groundwork started. But it was implemented in 2011. And we just completed our second year. And we see some progress. We still have room to grow, but we have seen some progress in certain areas, specifically with our African American students and our students with disabilities. And when you look at the report card, when the information is released tomorrow, you will see that we have more students who are proficient or above proficiency in reading and mathematics in those particular areas, which means that we are showing progress. However, the state has this very complex way of providing us a score, and in some ways our scores are not high enough. So you will see all that tomorrow. Like I said, we wanted to make sure we front-loaded some information to you all because the document is very complicated. We're even having discussions about it now in central office with principals so that they can have a better understanding of the actual report cards. But I want you to just keep in mind as we go through the presentation with Dr. Whittington today is that this is only one source, and it does not define who we are as a school district. And we have done some phenomenal things, but we can't say that everything that we've done is great. We do have some room to grow, and we're working on that. And we're going to need your continued support as well as encouragement so that we can get through these next few years. So I think it is going to take us some time to show the progress that I know you all would like to see, as well as I would like to see in the district. So I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Whittington, and if we can just welcome her to the stage.
Good evening. Basically, I'm going to give you an introduction to the new Ohio Department of Education report card, and I'm going to start by comparing it to the report card we've been seeing all along. And before I get into that, I'd like to set a little bit of an historical context. If you think back to 2002, George Bush was president of the United States, and Ted Kennedy was a great power in the Senate. And they united in passing what they regarded as a revolutionary education law called No Child Left Behind. And one of the things that the No Child Left Behind law stated was that by 2014, 100% of all children in the United States would be proficient. And we haven't been able to get any traction in terms of getting an update of that law passed in Congress, but the Department of Education under Barack Obama did decide to create the option for states to apply for what's called a waiver. And so the Ohio Department of Education in February of 2012 applied for a waiver so that it could develop a new accountability system and a new report card that addresses the sorts of things that are of concern in No Child Left Behind, but do not require the 100% proficiency that's stated in that original law. So that's the source of why we have this new report card now. We did get the waiver. So to start with the past report cards, many of you have seen them, some of you may not. But the report cards that we've been using for the last 10 years or so has been based on sort of a dual approach to accountability. One part has been the state initiated focus. It grew out of a blue ribbon panel that then Governor Taft put together. And basically, from a state perspective, the concern is how many children were able to pass, excuse me, each of several tests at several grade levels. Now, the tests include both reading and mathematics, but they also include science, social studies, and writing at various grade levels. So altogether, there are 22 different tests that are administered within the district every year for state accountability purposes. And you'll see here this thing called state indicators, and it reports the percent of children who have passed each test. And then at the bottom, you'll see attendance rate and four-year graduation rate. All those tests, in conjunction with the attendance rate and the graduation rate, reach a total of 26. And so one way in which we are assessed is the number of these indicators that we meet. In other words, did 75% of the students pass the test, and did a high enough percent of students graduate, and did a high enough percent of them come to school. The other thing that they developed was something called a performance index, which is based on the tests as well. And it's sort of like a weighted GPA. You get extra credit if you get an advanced score, and you get partial credit if you do a basic score, which means you got some stuff right, but not enough to be proficient. And all of those scores for all of the children are put together to create this performance index. And last year, if you got a performance index of 100 or above, it was considered excellent. So, in the end, the district would get a designation that was based on the indicators and the performance index, whichever was higher, that led to the designation. There was also a part of the report card that was related to No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind did not focus attention on social studies or science or writing. It was focused exclusively on reading and mathematics. But No Child Left Behind was concerned that we had to look not at everybody put together, but at different groups. It was important that every group within a school or a school district do well. So there are a variety of groups that No Child Left Behind requires us to pay attention to. There are groups based on racial and ethnic status, as well as students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, students who are with disabilities, students with limited English proficiency. Every one of those groups has to meet a standard. And if one group does not meet the standard in one subject, then we do not make what is called adequate yearly progress, which is up here. And adequate yearly progress, basically you're either met or you're not met. And I once said when I was teaching at John Carroll University that this is the ultimate Christian way because you're as good as the least of your groups. So at any rate, this adequate yearly progress grew out of No Child Left Behind. And more recently, a federally initiated goal on something called value added has also come in. And that is a way of looking at how children have grown from one year to the next. And down here you'll see checks and minuses, and sometimes you would see pluses. And that tells you whether the children in a given grade level have grown as expected, lower than expected, or higher than expected. That's all put together, and we get a district value-added designation. So this is what the report card used to look like. But now, as complicated as it might have been before, we have a new level of complication. First of all, we're going to have a lot of letter grades going from A through F, and there are going to be many more things we're graded on. The things we're graded on are classified into 6 general areas or 6 components. 2 of them are similar to what we've already been experiencing under the old report card. How we're doing with respect to achievement and how we're doing with respect to graduation. What's different is they've taken value added and they've modified it rather extensively. So it's there, but not in the same way that we've been living with it before. They also have taken the notion of adequate yearly progress and redefined it as gap closing, and the way that is calculated has changed as well. Finally, we have 2 brand new components. One is kindergarten through 3rd grade literacy, which is tied to the 3rd grade reading guarantee, and the other is prepared for success. So I'm going to try to give you an idea of what these 6 components are like. Okay, before we jump into that, this is what the new report card will look like. Basically, this is the achievement piece. This is called progress, which has to do with what we used to think of as value added. Gap closing, which is a variation on adequate yearly progress. Graduation rate, kindergarten through 3rd grade literacy, and prepared for success. I'm sorry that this is not a clean shot. I had to download it off the Ohio Department of Education, and this is the best I could get. So, okay. Let me start, whoops, okay. Let's start with achievement. We used to have indicators and a performance index, and from that we would get an overall designation. Now there will be no overall designation. We will have separate grades, one for our indicators, which is the percent of times that our students met the state standard of 75%, or in some cases 85%, or the graduation. And then the other is the performance index, which is like that weighted GPA. So we're going to have 2 grades for achievement. We're also going to have 2 grades for graduation. And this is going to take some explaining, but basically, let me see, can I find 5 volunteers? Okay, Mrs. Sutherland, Mr. Mothra, come on up. Okay, I need 2 more, okay. 1 more. All right. Okay, we have 5 volunteers here. Okay. These 5 volunteers are all entering Shaker Heights High School in 12th grade. They are all on track to walk across that stadium, or stage next June. Okay, you have started Shaker Heights 4 years ago and you've been staying here all along, okay? You transferred in from Orange, but you started ninth grade 5 years ago. You transferred from another school district in another state, but you started ninth grade 4 years ago. You transferred in from a school district called Alexandria. And you also started 4 years ago. You are a student who's been in special education, and you have completed all of your credits so far, and you have met the testing requirement, and you too are on track to graduate. So, how many of you started ninth grade 4 years ago? Please raise your hands. Okay. All right. You will not count as a graduate under No Child Left Behind, so just stand back here. Thank you. Okay. You started 4 years ago, you started 4, you started 4. Now, you've been great. But you would really like to stay and get the further vocational training that you can get as a result of being a child with special needs. But in order to get that training, you may not pick up your diploma. The moment you pick your diploma up, you won't get the aid. You too will not count as a graduate, even though you met all the requirements. Because you won't, if you pick up your diploma, you can move up here. But if you don't, you have to stay back here. So all of these people are on track to graduate. All of them will probably graduate on time. But only these 3 meet the No Child Left Behind rules about graduating within 4 years. So when you look at the graduation rate, you have to keep in mind that it's a special way of calculating the graduation rate. It is not just whether or not somebody graduates. It's whether or not they graduate within 4 years of the day they first became ninth graders. Okay, thank you, and I hope to see you all next June.
My question is whether or not you're...
So, we have a new formula in place to calculate this graduation rate. The state has also added in a 5th-year criterion, so if you graduate within 5 years, that you will count as a graduate for the 5-year grade, just not for the 4-year grade. Now, the other thing is, because these graduation rates are based on students who've completed their diploma by the end of the summer, there's always a year's delay. So actually, the report card that comes out tomorrow will be reporting a graduation rate, but it won't be for the class of 2013. It'll be for the class of 2012. So it's probably, in some way, it seems so simple, but it's not. Okay, value added. Let me explain to you briefly what value added is. It's a notion that's based on the idea that if you look at how a student performed at 1 year and how they did a year later, that any improvement that that student has shown is due to the education he or she has been getting in school. So there's a value-added system where children they use data from the past to make predictions about how students are likely to perform the next time they take the state test. And then they compare how they perform to what the prediction was. And some children will make the prediction, some kids will do way better than the prediction, and some will grow, but they will just not as much as the prediction says. And that's the basis of value added. We used to have value added on the report card, but it was only value added for everybody put together. Now the state is adding in 3 additional groups that we're paying attention to. So we will get an A to F grade value added for all the children in the Shaker Heights City School District put together. But we will also get grades for gifted students, students with disabilities, and students scoring in the lowest 20% of the state. And that's a little confusing. What that means is they took all the tests of all the kids in the state, and they identified what score you needed to be in the bottom 5th. And any child with that score or lower would be included in this value-added estimate. So it's not the bottom 20% of our students, it's students who scored in the bottom 20% of the state. So we're going to get 4 value-added grades. Okay, totally new futures. Okay, first we have this thing called gap closing. And gap closing is the new version of what we used to call adequate yearly progress. It's a way of looking at student progress and student achievement to see if achievement gaps are getting narrowed. What the state has done is established a common standard that every group must meet. And there's a standard in reading and there's a standard in mathematics. And then they've developed a complex point system that looks to see did the group make the standard or not? If the group didn't make the standard, did they improve? And if they improved enough, they get partial points. And all the points are put together to create a grade. And I know you don't want to stay here till midnight, so I won't try to explain exactly how it's done. But if you want to, you can always email me and ask me. At any rate, we will get a grade for gap closing this year. There is also a kindergarten through 3 literacy component, and that is based on looking at the percentage of our children who seem to be on target to passing the 3rd grade reading test. It's tied into the 3rd grade reading guarantee. So starting this year, we have to administer assessments to our students from kindergarten through 3rd grade, and we use those assessments to let us know if the children are on track to pass the test. And that will feed into what the report card will look like. Ultimately, we will get a letter grade. The first time this is done, it's only going to be the percentages reported. Okay. This report card is going to be issued, but there are going to be lots of places where things are not reported yet because it's being phased in. So next summer, when the report card comes out, there will be new information that we haven't seen before. One thing that will start appearing is data that they call prepared, that's related to prepared for success. Remember that a big goal is to have children come out of school, college, and career ready. So the state has come up with all kinds of data that will be reported for every school district that pertain to this notion. There will be the percentage, how students did on college admissions tests, notably the SAT and the ACT. There will be something called dual enrollment credit data, and that is if a student's in the high school but he or she enrolls at Cuyahoga Community College or Cleveland State or Case and picks up a course, they get credit coming back. That's what we would call dual enrollment. Industry credentials. We do have students that are taking vocational training and they do pick up industry credentials. That will be reported. Honors diplomas, and then participation in advanced placement courses, as well as how well our students do on those tests, and participation in the International Baccalaureate, and how well our students do on the test. All of these things, at least for a while, will be reported, but there will be no grade. In August of 2015, we get a whole bunch of new grades. We'll get an overall grade for everything on the report card. We will get component grades. If you'll recall, I mentioned earlier, we'll get a grade for performance index and we'll get a grade for indicators. Those are 2 achievement grades. In the August of 2015, we will get an overall achievement grade as well as those other 2 grades. We'll get an overall progress grade as well as the 4 value-added grades. So that is coming. We will get a grade for K-3 literacy. And they are finally going to develop a prepared for success grade, but they don't know exactly what they're going to put in it yet, and we won't know until the summer that the grade comes out. So I can't tell you anything about what that's going to look like. Part of it is related to what they're calling the College and Career Ready Assessment, which I think is going to be whatever they select to replace the Ohio graduation test, but they haven't decided on that. So we don't know what that's going to be or when the students will have to take the test. I know a lot of people have heard that it's going to be the ACT, but that may not, in fact, that is likely not to be the case. So, and then finally in August of 2016, the high school is going to get its very first value-added grade as well. That's going to be based on the new end-of-course exams that students have to take for graduation. So, that's it, as much as I can share with you tonight. If you want to know more about the report cards, these are various ways to access information. And with that, I will stop and turn it back to our new super.
Okay, well, first off, I know that was a lot of information for you all, but this just goes to show that it is a very complex tool. And all of the grades that you've heard that we will receive, it's all based on one data source, which is, our Ohio Testing for Reading and Math, and that's strictly it. So I'm hoping that, you will understand this upcoming year, there are a lot of measures that we're putting in place to progress monitor our students, as well as our student achievement levels throughout the year. We're looking at grade distribution data, we're looking at discipline data, we're currently working on common assessments or tests that all of our schools will administer to our students so we can see if students have mastered material throughout each quarter. And we're looking at a number of other data sources so that we're not just relying on this one data source to determine how well we're doing as a school district. I wanted to make sure that we provided opportunities for you all to ask questions today. I think that the purpose in this meeting this evening was to give you all a clear picture of what the Ohio State Assessment is all about. The Ohio grading system is all about. And also give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you have about the district, about where we're going, questions that you may have about the information that Dr. Whittington just shared with you, but we wanted to provide you all with that moment. So we're going to pass around, or you probably already received a card, a note card, and if you can write your questions down on that note card, if you raise them up, someone will come and pick up the questions. And today we have a moderator, Dan Malthrop, who is he's a Shaker parent and also community leader here, and he will ask these questions, and I'm hoping I will be able to answer them. But I have a wonderful administrative team that's here today to help me out if there are some questions that I cannot answer.
All right. Well, let's get started. If you have questions, while we're going, just raise the card up, and somebody will grab it. We've got a bunch here, and I'll save my questions until the end, only if we run out. So in the Dr. Whittington, in the 5 student example, we can share the mic. It'll be like we're delivering an Oscar presentation. In your 5 student example, does that then work out to a 60% graduation rate?
With those 5,
You have to speak into the microphone, otherwise the good folks watching at home on their computers won't be able to. Oh, we've got another microphone for you.
yes, if those 5 were our entire senior class, yes, we would only have a 60% graduation rate.
That's troubling. Is that troubling to you?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And we have to keep in mind, even like, for instance, the student with disabilities, there are some students who may need an additional year of high school who have disabilities, and we're penalized as a district for providing them with the services that they need for that additional year because they don't count as a 4-year graduate, which affects our graduation rate overall. So that's a particular situation that we actually have here happening in our district often.
How is this counted if a high school student enters Shaker High not on track? So how do we measure that? How do we account for that?
It's whoever was here at the time. They don't, if they're here and not on track, they're still ours.
Mhm.
We have, in fact, we do have students who come in and they're 5 or 6 years behind.
They come in at the 9th
They
grade?
come in-
No,
they
they'll come in,
12th
they may
grade.
come in as juniors or seniors, already many years behind. so far behind that they can't make the four-year criterion, but because they are Shaker Heights students, they will count into they will be non-graduates
Yes.
for us.
So the moment a student enrolls in Shaker schools, they become a Shaker student, and they are calculated in those numbers. Regardless of their past and where they were prior to coming to us, it could be their first time with us their senior year. And just as Dr. Whittington said, if they're in their 5th year and they just arrived with us, they graduate in 5 years, we get penalized for that. And right now we're looking at specifics on how many students are in that situation, how many students are students with disabilities, how many students have simply dropped out, or how many students that have moved that we may not have pulled out of a calculation. I mean, we're constantly looking at that data, but we're pulling that now so that we can begin to prepare for the future.
So there's a pair of questions here that have to do with teaching to the test. I'll just throw them both together. Why do we continue to gear curriculum based on tests rather than dealing with each student's ability to learn? And will this force teachers to have to teach to the tests?
I think one thing that I'm going to share with teachers tomorrow at our convocation is that Shaker Heights is not a district that teaches to the test, and that's not what we're here to do. But there are learning objectives that students are required to master, and we want to make sure that our students are exposed to the material that will show up on the test, as well as exposed to all the other things. Here we value the arts. I mean, we have a band of over 400 members, which is a huge marching band that's going to be here tomorrow. And we have the performing arts as well here in our buildings, and all of our schools are a part of the International Baccalaureate Organization. So I think there are other factors that we focus on as a district, but we are going to have to make sure that teachers are exposing our students to the learning objectives that will show up on the test. But we're not going to teach the test.
This is a sort of like, what's your greatest fear question? What weaknesses do you anticipate for Shaker, and how can we as parents help in the schools? And I would also add to that, how can we talk with our neighbors and about this, about the news that's going to come out in ways that would be helpful?
Well, I mean, I think that there are 3 areas in particular that, as a district, we're going to have to focus on. And there are 3 student groups, one being our African-American student group, and our socioeconomic or low socioeconomic students or economically disadvantaged students, and then also our students with disabilities. So those are the 3 student groups that I think we are going to have to be a little more intentional about in regards to serving their needs in our schools. And it's not just any African-American student. So we have to look at specifically which students in those subgroups or student groups are not performing or at the proficiency level. And we're going to be working on that this upcoming year. What you all can do and what you can share with your neighbors is talk about, what we have to offer here in Shaker. I mean, you look at the course offerings that we have at our high school. You walk into our buildings and you see learning taking place in our classrooms. We have a community that stands behind our schools. We're passionate about education. I mean, all of the things that I think makes Shaker a special place are the qualities that we need to share with our neighbors and not just focus on the one assessment that the state gives us this grade for. So I'm hoping that people can share just your experiences that you're having in the schools. And many of you, I hope, have had positive experiences. And if you have not, please share them with us, because it's all about continuous improvement, and we can only grow with constructive feedback. But we hope that we're serving our students well, and we're providing you with a great learning environment.
What about the question about what parents can do in the schools?
What parents can do in schools, I think just making sure that you're connected to our schools, that you're being an advocate for your child, and that you're being an advocate for other children. We are always looking for volunteers to come into our buildings. This year we're going to be doing a lot more parent outreach because we need parents to come in and to educate some of our other parents. Some of our families who come into Shaker Heights may not have the same life experiences that some of you in this room have had. Some parents have not graduated from college. Some parents don't know the importance of reading to your child every night or turning off the TV when it's time to eat dinner. So I think it's important for us to be able to collaborate with other parents and for our families to be able to give some outreach to the community to have discussions around really good things that can help increase student achievement in our schools.
Staying with, continuing to give you an opportunity to manage expectations about tomorrow's news, what are you expecting the graduation rate to be? And are we expecting to get an F anywhere?
I think that we're going to have a range from A to F tomorrow. And there are a number, I think there are 24, how many components? It's like 24 grades, or 24 grades.
Lord, give me a second. I'll
Okay.
have to visualize it.
There's a number of grades, I do know that.
More
and
than
they
a baker's
range.
dozen.
You know, with the preliminary results, it's a range from an A to an F. Tomorrow, we'll actually get to see the final scores. I haven't seen the final. I'm going to see them when you all see them at 11 o'clock. I've just seen the preliminaries, and they can change. Every other week, they would send us preliminary results, and the results actually changed every couple of weeks. So it's really hard to say how many Fs we would have, but there is a range from A to F in regards to our achievement.
This is a technical question about value added. How can we reach the highest grade possible under the current circumstances when there's so much focus on value added for the lower 20% of youth?
Say that again.
I'm trying to interpret this a little bit, but maybe it just speaks to the need for a little bit more clarity and on value added. How can we reach the highest grade possible under the current circumstances of being focused on value added and the lower 20%?
I think that we're going to see better scores with our lowest 20%, honestly, here in Shaker Heights. That's my prediction. I think that we will.
Is that because it's easiest to grow there?
Well, one, because we have a lot of structures in place to support our students who are low performing, and we have a lot of structures in place to support our students who are high performing. So our gifted, our AP courses, our IB courses. I think we're going to see most of our challenges with students who are in the middle. And that's not a student group that we talk about often. You know, we always talk about the achievement gap, and we talk about our lowest performers, and we talk about our highest performers. Our middle group, our kids, our average students, are the students that we're not going to see the tremendous gains that we are going to probably see in our lower students and our students who are performing at the higher level.
While we're talking about value added, Dr. Whittington, maybe this is a question for you. There's an implicit comparison involved in value added, right? It's like you're adding value as compared to some hypothetical average school. Is that what it is, or?
No, okay, I'll just try. Let's say that we have a group of students who just entered fourth grade last year, and so they took the Ohio Achievement Assessments in reading and math in March, okay? Sitting somewhere in a computer somewhere is a very complex computer program that nobody really knows what it is. But what it does is it takes the data that those students earned in third grade and runs it through and comes up with an expectation of how students should be doing on that fourth grade test when they take it. It's an expectation of what 1 year's worth of growth would be. And then that 1 year's worth of growth, however the student performed, is the class or the school or the district. They have a variety of ways of calculating this. But how often did we meet expectations? How often did students exceed expectations? And how often did they grow but not to the level that we wanted them to? That's what value added is. So students are always benchmarked against how they've done against the past, and then there's a projection of how they will continue to grow into the future, and then we are compared to whether or not that expectation was met.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. That's helpful.
That's a cohort, an age cohort. It's not student specific. They're not tracking, John's.
The question there is just for the recording, is it a cohort, or is it child specific,
There
or is
are
it classroom specific?
There are a variety of ways in which these calculations are carried out. There's one way of calculating it if you're going to look at how a school grew or a district group. There's a separate set of calculations, completely differently, that are done to estimate value added associated with a teacher. But you also can get value added results for individual students. So they slice it every way they can.
Isn't there like a baseball statistic, like wins over replacement player? This is a quick question, Dr. Hutchings. If parents work or go to school early in the morning, is it possible for them to bring their son earlier before classes begin? I think the answer is yes. The early care and before care is provided by the city of Shaker Heights.
Yes. We have
Mayor,
before and
like, and
after
present. Thank you for that. But thinking about that, is there a way to fold in more academic enrichment? And
Yes, yeah, and I think we're already doing that. I know at the middle school as well as at the high school, we offer after in Woodbury. Thank you. We offer after school or extended learning time for our students from 3 to 4. And teachers, they're actually here because they're still on the clock. I just found it out last week at a meeting. I was so excited to hear about that. That we're already paying teachers to be here until 4 o'clock. And one discussion that we've had that we will be doing this year, and you all are going to hear more information about this, at Woodbury, the middle school, and also the high school, students who are not performing at a proficient level, they will have to stay for that extended time, for that additional hour. And that's going to be non-negotiable because we really need to be able to provide them with the skills they need to be successful. And whether we're going to get it during the day or we're going to get it after school, they're going to give us their time so that we can teach them. And another piece, parents, they're going to receive that information the first month of school, sometime in September. And at the end of the quarter, parents will receive a letter if their students are not on grade level, so that we have 3 quarters to catch them up. So by the end of the school year, everybody's on grade level or above, and that we're meeting everyone's needs.
And I should note too that information about those early care or before care and after care is at the city's recreation department website, and
Yeah,
you can register there.
I believe so. Is it through the city?
No? Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
And there's a fee associated with it,
There is a fee associated, I believe, with it.
but it would be a lot more expensive if in other cases. Anyway,
But after-school tutoring during our extended time is free.
Right.
And we provide transportation for students to go home, and teachers are there. Every teacher in the building is there and available to work with our students. So we're going to take advantage of that.
questions must be on a card. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. A question about the middle school ratings. They are lower than all the rest of our Shaker schools. What are we doing to improve Shaker Middle School?
Well, I was at the middle school orientation this morning. I got to see a couple of parents who are here today, this morning. And I think one thing that we're trying to be intentional about is allowing our assistant principals as well as our principal at the middle school to become instructional leaders, meaning they are in classrooms, they are providing feedback, immediate feedback to teachers, that they're providing coaching for our teachers. And this upcoming year, to do that, we have decided to hire a response to intervention specialist who focuses on academic as well as behavior supports for our students at the middle school. And we're hoping that this position, what's his name? Robert McMahon, was just hired last week. And so he starts on Monday, or it starts tomorrow with everyone else. And his main responsibility will be to work with our students in 7th and 8th grades who have behavior issues, as well as some academic issues, and to help provide supports for them. And the goal is for him to decrease the workload of our assistant principals in regards to behavior, so they're able to be in classrooms and working with our teachers and also providing constructive feedback to our teachers regarding teaching and learning. So that is one step that we've taken already at the middle schools. We're also talking about the extended time, making that a requirement for all of our students who are not performing on grade level beginning the first quarter, so that they will receive those academic supports after school for that hour. And we are also having conversations now about some accelerated options for our students who are performing at high levels, whether it's online learning for some of our students or students taking courses at the high school. So those are just some of the things that we've discussed in the past month that I've been here. During my 90-day plan. I will be reviewing and analyzing our middle schools as well as some additional data, and we will make more decisions regarding how we're going to, increase achievement at the middle school.
This is a kind of a what's really at stake here question. What did the low or poor numbers ultimately mean or result in? Less funding, poor image? What are we actually talking about? Why does this matter?
Less funding, that's not going to be the case, but I think that our image is one, because one, everybody here reads, well, I guess now you have to go online to read the Plain Dealer, but I know everyone's reading the newspaper, and they're visiting the Ohio Department of Education website, and if you look up, our district, once these scores are released, we may see some scores that just don't look good on paper. What we're doing as a district is we're beginning to look at all of the other measures that we have in place, and we're going to have our own district-wide report card. We just started talking about that last week with the cabinet members to kind of give ourselves grades on the things that we do that are not showing up on the Ohio New Report Card, such as, the extracurricular activities we offer, the course offerings that we offer at the high school as well as at the middle school, some of the enrichment programs that we offer our students. And we hope that that information will get out into the community and you all can see some of the great things that we're doing as well as the areas that we need to strengthen.
You talked a little bit about strategies you're employing at the middle school. The questioner here says, what are the strategies currently being implemented across the district to improve value-added scores?
Well, at our K-4 schools, this upcoming year, we just hired 2 instructional coaches that will focus on mathematics, because that's one of our areas that I think we need to focus on as a district based on our data. We're seeing really good results in regards to reading, and we've implemented phenomenal reading programs. Our level literacy was one of the programs that we've implemented at our K-4 schools, really K-6, I think, right? Or K-6. And we've seen some significant improvements with that. So we've hired 2 instructional coaches who will focus on math. They will go into classrooms at our K-4 schools to work with teachers on best mathematical practices. They will also be able to model really good instruction for our teachers, and as well as conduct professional learning opportunities so our teachers are able to go in and serve all of our students regardless of their backgrounds.
What
So
about
that's
the high
just-
school?
At the high school, we continuously have conversations about, the high school. The biggest thing I think right now is our graduation rate. And some of the practices that I think we have in place has done a disservice, to our scores overall. Not to say that they're bad. They're things that people do, in other districts. But I think we have some institutional barriers at our high school that we need to really address.
What do you mean by
And
that?
What I mean by that is we have an opportunity gap. I think that some of our students, they are encouraged to take certain courses and other students are not. And we're going to have to do a better job of identifying students who have the potential to be in our higher level courses and give them that option to be in there and really push them into those classes with the supports that they need. I also think that we're going to have to make sure we have those supports for students after school, such as the 3 to 4 that we're going to do at the middle school. We're also doing at the high school from 3 to 4 o'clock. Students who are not performing on grade level will receive that extended learning time so they can have some academic support so they're successful. We're also looking at, in the future, providing some online options for our students to have an alternative pathway to receive your high school diploma. Some of our kids, they really don't like the traditional setting. They don't want to be in school from, 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. So we're going to have to begin to look at what are some alternative pathways for our students, to be successful and to graduate with a Shaker High School diploma.
And Dr. Whittington, what is our current graduation rate? And in a best case scenario, how good could it get, given the fact that we do attract transient populations, transient families, and also we very well serve special needs children who won't graduate in 5 years, or 4 years rather?
I have to admit, I don't know the exact graduation rate. And the way it's calculated changed in the last year. But I know it's in the 80s.
And given the way that it's calculated, what's the best it could be?
That's hard to say. I've been asked to look at our data to see what are the characteristics of students who would be what we would say are not on track to graduate. And until I know what they look like exactly, I can't tell you, because there are going to be some things we don't have control over, like a student who may transfer in their senior year and they're already 5 or 6 years behind. That we can't control. But there are other things I think we can control, but we've just got to know what those things are, who it affects, and then how we can intervene in those cases.
Thank you.
And I think it's starting before high school, you know. We need to really target our students in 5th grade. And that's when we really see a split. 5th grade, we start to have, you know, our advanced level courses in math, and in some cases in language arts as well. And that's when students go down different paths. And some students are prepared to take those higher level courses when they get to the high school. And then the students who don't get into those higher level courses in 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, they're not prepared to take an AP course when they get to the high school. So I think we have to start earlier to really get our students prepared to get into those classes.
Okay, here's a rapid fire moment for you. 3 pretty quick questions. The K-3 literacy part of all of this, does that assume that students start to learn to read in kindergarten? What's the assumption the state is making?
Yes, we want students to come able to identify certain words before they get to kindergarten. And that's why I really believe that we have to push pre-K and early childhood education because the state does require our students to begin reading in kindergarten so that by 3rd grade they are proficient and they're on grade level for us to get the actual letter grade of an A. All of our kids, or a certain percentage of our kids, will have to be on the 3rd grade reading level before they leave 3rd grade. I had a meeting about a week ago with Family Connections, and there are some early childhood education programs that we currently provide here in Shaker Heights for families who come from low-income families or economically disadvantaged families. And many of our families here are not a part of this wonderful opportunity we have right here in our city. I don't know if it's because they are not aware of the program. I don't know if it's a transportation issue. I don't know if it's a financial issue because it is $60 to do this pre-kindergarten program that they have during the summer. It's a 5-week program. It's called the Sparks program. Get Ready program that happens the summer before their kindergarten year. But we had conversations around how can we get this information out into the community and begin to educate, you know, our families who come from economically disadvantaged, because typically, and not that I'm pinpointing our economically disadvantaged families, but typically our students who are entering kindergarten who are not reading, who have not been exposed to vocabulary, are families who come from low income, or children who come from low income families. Typically, that is the case. So we need to figure out how do we get, you know, or how do we reach out to these families so that they take advantage of these programs. So our students come in with some prior knowledge, and we're not beginning day one literally introducing the alphabet to our students. So it's educating our families as well.
I'm noticing you don't do rapid fire.
Sorry, I don't.
That's okay. That's okay. Are they gifted students selected on a state basis or just from within the Shaker schools?
The gifted students based on the state criteria. So these are gifted students who are in the 95th percentile based on the state. That's the state's criteria. So it's not going to be all Shaker's gifted students.
Does this report card system affect teacher evaluation or change it in any way?
It will in the future because, you know, a part of OTES, the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System, 50% of a teacher's evaluation is based on student achievement. So achievement scores will have an impact on teachers' evaluations in the future.
Okay. Are students in the high school assigned a teacher or parent volunteer mentor or even a student mentor? And how can we assist students and families to navigate the educational system?
Well, last year we started the advisory period at the high school. Something that was our trial year, and I know we have some things that we need to kind of refine, and we're working on that. But I look at the students right here, they're rolling their eyes in their heads like, oh, advisory. But I think that the purpose in having advisory was really to provide students with a mentor in a sense, and to have discussions around teaching and learning, and to establish goals, for our students so that they're able to, set these expectations for themselves and take ownership of their own learning. We are going to have to refine our advisory, period, and we are having discussions. I know Ms. Robinson, Marla Robinson, the Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, is working with Mr. Griffith, who is our high school principal, on how we're going to make that more robust.
Okay. You expect the highest scores with the lowest 20% and the gifted students. However, projected report cards do not show that. 3 C's, 2 F's, 1 A, 1 D for gifted students, 2 F's, 2 C's, 1 D, and 2 B's for the lowest 20%. Why do you think the projected report cards expect such decidedly mixed results? These student journalists here are asking the most penetrating
Yeah, I'm like,
questions. You might want to make yourself available to them afterwards.
Yeah, I think what you're asking is, why do I believe that the students who are in the lowest 20th percentile and the students who are gifted are going to perform higher, or we're going to receive higher grades for them, correct? Versus our students who are in the middle?
Yes, but also, you're saying that, but the projected report cards don't show that.
What projected report cards?
They were from the Plain Dealers website, not from the.
From this year?
That's last year.
Yes. So that's probably why. That's from last, yes. So this year there are different measures that they're still using the same state assessment, but the way they come up with their the way the state comes up with their calculations are different than how things were last year. So based on the preliminary results that I've reviewed, I believe that our students who are performing in the lowest 20th or 20th percentile are going to perform better or see more value added for them, as well as our gifted students in comparison to our students who are in the middle or our average level students. And that's just because a lot of our programs that we have here in Shaker Heights, they're geared towards those particular groups. That's where most of our supports are. So we have to figure out as a district how we're going to not just serve our lowest performing students and our highest performing students, but all of our students, regardless of their circumstances. And that's our challenge. And I knew that coming in, so I hope that you all knew that coming in, because I was told that during the interview. So, that is our charge, and that's what we're planning to do.
Speaking of programs that are targeted to certain populations, how will the mandatory after-school time that you mentioned be structured? Will students be taught in smaller groups, and do we have the resources in terms of faculty to do that, and do you expect any backlash?
I wouldn't think that we would have backlash, but I don't know. I don't know all the faculty members in Shaker Heights yet, but I don't think so. I think that
or student backlash.
I think our faculty would support it because they're there anyway. I think that students will probably have some backlash to it, just because now you're being required to stay after school for this additional hour. We don't have, a large percentage of our students who are not on grade level. It would be different if 80% of our kids are not on grade level, but we have a small percentage of our students who are not on grade level. So I don't think the size of the classroom is going to be an issue. Students will know that if you choose not to stay after for that additional hour and you end up, failing that class, that you will be retained, particularly in kindergarten through 8th grade. We want to make sure we're moving students forward who have mastered the material. And that's really not a practice we've had here in Shaker Heights. Not to say that we're going to, we're all about failing students, because failure is not an option, for our students. But we want to make sure that students have mastered learning objectives prior to moving forward. And we're saying mom, dad, grandmom, auntie, foster mom, whoever is raising that particular child, we're saying we're giving you the support. We have it here. We give you the transportation. We have the teacher. We have the resources. We have the materials. Your child has to show up. And if your child doesn't show up, they're going to make up the time, whether it's the hour after school or it's next year doing the grade over. But they're going to make it up because our kids need to have, we need to set some standards here and not just say, okay, we're going to promote them forward because they finished the whole year. No social promotion, mastery promotion is what we need to do. And that's how we're going to close the achievement gap, making it a priority. And I think over time, students will realize that, you know, Shaker Heights is not playing anymore. And we're serious about our students, and we want them to achieve. And they're going to take school more seriously.
How is the district doing with differentiated instruction? Because that seems to be a key here.
I think that is key here. I think that we have had some professional learning on differentiated instruction for our teachers. I think that is an area that many teachers struggle with, and some teachers are asking for additional supports. And this year, we have already started conversations. We're looking and bringing someone in to work with our teacher leaders as well as our administrators starting in September, and dealing with things like differentiated instruction as well as the new Ohio teacher evaluation system. But I just met with Aaron recently, Dr. Herbrick, sorry, Aaron Herbrick, who is our Director of Planning and Development. And we've talked about putting together a course catalog for our teachers to provide them with different learning or professional learning opportunities so that if they have a particular area that they have a deficit in, that the district can provide them with some supports and opportunities to enhance that particular skill. So those are conversations that we're having right now.
If many students aren't meeting the report card standards, how are they actually being prepared for life beyond high school, college, and the workforce? Or are they not?
Yeah, I was going to say, if they're not meeting I think that the Ohio standards, they are minimal. Those are our minimum standards. So I think that, if students are not passing, that is a concern for us. Don't get me wrong. I want you to know that it is a concern for us, and that they may not be on the pathway to be successful. And that's why we have to make sure we're reaching out to them prior to graduation so that by the time they leave us with a Shaker Heights diploma, they're able to go on to college or go on to pursue a career of their choice.
We're out of these questions. So if you have a sort of a final thought or three, now's the time.
Or 3. Thank you. I get 3. Do you all have any other questions before I give my final thought? Yes, I know the Shaker Right does.
Are you saying you're going to end social promotion?
We need to end social promotion, yes. The reason why we need to end it is because we're moving students or we're promoting students who are not really prepared to move forward. And what we find is that you see a higher retention rate in 9th grade here in Shaker Heights, which is a little odd because 9th grade is when it really counts towards our report card. I mean, that's how the graduation rate is evaluated or how it's calculated. And we wait until 9th grade to retain certain students. And I think that if we know early on that the student's not prepared to move forward, we need to try to provide that remediation or supports sooner than later.
Well, and that also has the added benefit of improving your graduation rate over the long term.
It will. And it will make our students better prepared to go on to take those higher level courses. So we have to keep in mind that we can't wait until high school. It's not that it's too late, but it's more difficult to serve a student well if we're waiting until 9th grade. We need an early warning system, which I think we're having discussions right now with the U.S. Department of Education. I got an email recently about that, about the early warning system at the high school, and talking about possibly using a system at the high school that will identify students who may be in jeopardy of failing or not graduating in 4 years based on attendance, based on behavior, based on grades, and that we can put some supports in place, for them earlier or sooner than later.
If I may, Dr. Hutchings, just as this is wrapping up, everybody who's a board member or a district employee works at the central office, can you raise your hand so that people know who you are? I just encourage you, if you don't know these people, get to know them, and if you have further questions that you didn't want to throw up here, just bring them to them. You voted for some of them.
Yes, we did. And hold us accountable. And I think that we got into this business for a reason, and it's for our students. And, we can't do a great job if you don't hold us accountable. So we're asking for you to give us feedback. And like I said earlier, Shaker Heights doesn't have a problem sending emails or letters or coming to knock on the door to tell you concerns. So we just encourage you to continue to do that and know that we are here to do what's best for all of our students. Regardless of their circumstances, you know, we are committed to make sure every student that steps foot in one of our schools will be successful, and they'll be able to go off to college or go off to have whatever career they choose to have in the future. So we just appreciate your support, and we hope that you will continue to support us and tell your community or our community, because now I'm a part of this wonderful community, that, you know, our schools really are great places and they're special places. And I, you know, challenge people to come and visit the school and come walk our halls, come visit our classrooms before you make judgments. Because a lot of times a piece of paper, people make a judgment about the whole school district off of one grade, and that's not enough. You say it about your kids all the time. Yeah, my child, they had a bad quarter. That doesn't make them a bad child forever. So I want you to all have that same philosophy when you're thinking about the report card for our district. And I just appreciate you coming out. It's great to have this many people who are passionate and who want to learn more about this new report card. And we're very, very grateful. So thank you so much, and you all have a great evening. Thank you.